again, I want to get away from the JEP because they are becoming less significant. To be honest with you, what I want to get on to is the costs of this latest not so secret court case, and just who is fitting the bill. So I'll tell you why I ask, because the judge was very concerned about the representatives having to fork out a lot of money, and it wasn't fair on them. But the way I sort of, the rumour is that this is getting, well, we don't know who's paying the bill, but it's certainly taxpayers, isn't it?
Oh, we do know who's paying the bill. Let's be absolutely clear about this. The four representatives are not the actual litigant. They're mere proxies. They're just front men that have been taken and pushed forward by the Data Protection Commissioner and the Attorney General's office. Essentially, what this action is in reality, it's an action by the state in Jersey, Crown forces the Attorney General and the Data Protection Commissioner to oppress independent journalism so as to stop independent journalists like you and me and other bloggers publishing evidence about the malfeasances, the crimes and the incompetence of the Jersey's government. The four individuals concerned are merely front men. They're just proxies being used. Now, there's no question of them ever incurring any cost. None of this has cost them one penny at all. This is being funded totally by taxpayers' money. If you were to ask me how much do I estimate that this particular phase has cost, merely this last 12 months of oppressive nonsense, I would imagine probably it's got to be at least £2 million. Many of the emails that they've sent to me over the months, they've had 2 or 3 or 4 other lawyers copied into it, and that's in Appleby, Global, Balash, Labesse alone, let alone how many other lawyers they've used behind the scenes. So they've clearly been actually chiselling vast sums of money out of taxpayers for this. You ask who is paying for this? It will be taxpayers. Effectively, the court order against me, which claims to be on behalf of the representatives, is nothing of the kind. They know perfectly well that this is taxpayers who will be paying this. It wouldn't be lawful, however, for the Attorney General just to write them a cheque, or the Data Protection Commissioner. Therefore, they have to have this court order for costs to kind of give a spurious stamp of approval to what is basically the embezzlement of a couple of £1 million of taxpayers' money to oppress independent journalism in Jersey.
Because let's again sort of cut to the chase here, because this court case, not so secret court case, super injunction, call it what you like, wanted you to remove certain offending articles off of your blog site. Have you, or will you be removing the offending articles from your blog? And also, will you be paying the costs awarded against you?
I won't be removing any of the articles from my blog, just as I haven't done. Indeed, I'm probably going to publish a few more. The use that's been made of the data protection law in this matter is simply illegal. This is an abusive and grotesque and unlawful application of the data protection law. There's nothing in the data protection law itself, nor was there any legislative intent on the part of the island's parliament when that law was passed, that it should be used to basically criminalise the civil cause of defamation. Now, if you or I don't like something that somebody's written about us, if they write something that's saying we're a crook or anything of that nature, our remedy, same as for 99% of ordinary people, is to sue that person for defamation. It's a private law matter between me and the other person. What the state has done here is they're basically using the data protection law and using proxies to illegally oppress individuals. For the state, for the Jersey government to use and abuse the data protection law to oppress robust free speech in that way is simply, it's illegal. It's an act of criminal oppression.
Because aren't we coming back there to judge-made law? We done an interview on it, or you done a piece of camera about judge-made law? Is that exactly what you're talking about here?
Well, that's exactly correct, and this is one of the reasons why the Jersey oligarchy have done this and have sought to make this distorted, twisted use of the data protection law. The law itself does not allow for the things that they have done. The law has unambiguous provisions written in it for public interest disclosure, investigative journalism, the publication of evidence, records, data, if it's for the prevention and detection of crime. All of the things that I do, you do, other independent journalists do are allowed in the law, unambiguously. In that sense, the data protection law is no different to that which is in the UK and indeed elsewhere in modern democratic Europe. But the Jersey authorities have sought to use and abuse the law to basically silence their critics. And the way they've done this is to bring these court cases against me and to establish what is called judge-made law, which is where the court makes, in these cases, manifestly ridiculous, insupportable findings. For example, in the criminal action they took against me when I completely destroyed the prosecution case. They got around this minor inconvenience simply by deeming that my entire defence case would no longer be admissible after 3 months. So the resulting judge-made law in that case is a nonsense, but nevertheless courts in future in Jersey will look to that as a precedent, and they will use it to oppress you, me, Joe Smith, Jane Jones, whatever. Anyone that says anything or writes anything that the government doesn't like can now be oppressed because of these judge-made law precedents.
All right, so again, going back to this latest court case, seeing as the judge has reluctantly conceded there should be no further action taken, one has to ask, what has this not-so-secret court case actually achieved? You're not paying the costs, you're not taking the offending articles off of your blog site, so what has it achieved? Indeed, what did it actually set out to achieve?
Well, like a lot of these ridiculously corrupt and oppressive things that Jersey's entrenched oligarchy engage in their minds, they often seem like a really good idea because they appear as though they will achieve one or two or three complementary objectives that these crooks like. Just like, for example, the illegal suspension of Police Chief Graham Power seemed like a really good idea at the time because it would solve so many of these desperate problems they had, decades of crimes, corruption, child abuse being exposed. So they look at this oppression against me by abusing the data protection law against me, and they think, oh, this will achieve several objectives. It will shut me up, it will intimidate me, it will stop me from exposing the truth about the corruption of the Jersey polity. It will make an example against other people, other independent journalists and other bloggers, and frighten them off from criticising the government. But in particular, they want to establish this kind of judge-made law by which they can then constantly abuse anyone that exposes these criminals in future. But of course it hasn't achieved any of those things. I mean, these people are suffering from decades, centuries even, of hubris, and that they think they can just do what they please and people will roll over and take it. Well, of course, that age is long gone now. This is the 21st century. So in reality, what does this kind of action against me achieve? Well, it's made them look even more ridiculous and oppressive than they did already. In particular, it's forming a useful, distinct evidential case in itself for the necessary legal action against the Crown, the Privy Council and the Justice Secretary, which will be taken to court in London. You're going to use this judgment as part of your court case absolutely.
Against
this judgment, the extraordinary conduct of the judge involved, the secrecy, the plain unlawful abuse of public money, it's all a wonderfully well illustrated and dramatic example of the state abuse of power in Jersey. You know, you couldn't ask really for a better, fresher, more replete example of ridiculous, criminality and anti-democratic oppression by the Jersey mafia. In that sense, it's useful. But you ask, what has it achieved in reality? Well, within the Jersey context, all this really has done is enabled half a dozen lawyers to chisel a couple of £1 million out of taxpayers into their pockets, because taxpayers will be paying the bill. And it's an interesting point that people may not realise, is that there is no authorised budget anywhere in any public money in Jersey to fund this kind of ludicrous adventure. It's an unlawful activity. It's not a part of the States of Jersey policy. It isn't even in accordance with the data protection law. So there is no actual public money that can lawfully be spent on this. But nevertheless, that's what has funded this enterprise, which is why they needed these proxies, these representors, as fake litigants, behind which they could hide the fact that really this was the state oppressing me and basically unlawfully embezzling and spending probably a couple of £1 million at least of public money to fund this state oppression against me. I mean, the case is simply shocking. The judge they chose to appoint from England, Sir Charles Grey, was chosen and appointed by the current bailiff, Michael Burt. Now, Michael Burt is the most directly and expressly conflicted public official in Jersey. He is the person who should be under investigation for various acts and omissions he engaged in when he was the Attorney General back in 1998, 1999. So, I mean, you don't even need to know anything especially detailed about law. The average person knows that justice not only must be done, must be seen to be done. Courts of law, judges, have to be absolutely, immaculately objective, impartial. There can't even be an appearance of conflicts of interest. So therefore, you can't be a judge in your own cause. You can't appoint judges in your own cause. Now, that's just established law, has been for decades, centuries. No, that's just how it is. Yet the Jersey system is so manifestly unlawful. You have the most conflicted individual, Michael Burt, being able to choose and appoint his judge to hear the case, which Michael Burt is the most conflicted public official in. Now, this is simply another rock-solid example of the structural ultra vires of the Jersey administration of justice, and there's no hiding place from that. There's no hiding place for the Crown in that they are tolerating and protecting a manifestly unlawful system.